Do you know who I am? Backfires on an arrogant boss when an $800,000 project goes off the rails because he fired an irreplaceable employee. This didn't happen to me, but I was with the guy when he got a call about it. He told me the whole story. He's not on Reddit, so I'm sharing it. It's priceless. All names are changed to protect personal and company identities. Listed buildings are important to the story. In the UK, there's a system for preserving old and important buildings. If a building has historical significance, it's called a listed building, and the rules about how it can be developed, maintained, or improved are super strict. I gotta be vague about the work involved, otherwise it's too easy to figure out who's who. My friend David is skilled in a very niche area of construction. He fixes and renovates buildings using a super old construction method that hasn't been common for centuries. All his work is on conservation projects and listed buildings. Work was needed on a Grade 1 listed property. The overall building work was being done by the main contractor, ACC Limited. One part of the work was really specialized. The contractor's managers didn't know anyone who could do it, so the architect gave them a list of qualified people. The contractors picked my friend because he was available the soonest. 5 days into the work, the owner of ACC Limited, the main contractor company, showed up on site. He was acting all big and being a loudmouth, David's words. David was just doing his job and ignored him. The loudmouth told one of his carpenters to grab him a coffee. The carpenter vanished. The loudmouth kept wandering around and complaining about delays costing him a fortune. 15 minutes after the carpenter had vanished, the loudmouth asked my friend a question. Loudmouth, where is that damn carpenter with my coffee? Carpenter equals Chippy. David, I don't know. Loudmouth, go and find out. David, I'm only here for this job, pointing to the walls. I don't work for ACC Limited. Noisy gobshite, I don't care if you're an employee or a subcontractor, you still work for me. Now go and find my coffee. David, firstly, I don't like being talked to like that, and secondly, my contract with you is to do these walls, nothing more. I'm definitely not a gopher. Noisy gobshite, oh, you don't like being talked to like that, huh? Which subcontractor do you work for? David, none. I'm self-employed. It's just me, noisy gobshite, a day laborer. And you've got the nerve to talk to me like that. Do you know who I am? David, yep, noisy gobshite, well, you're fired. Get off the site now. David, okay, put it in writing. Noisy gobshite, just get off the site. David pulled out his phone and started recording. David, okay, I'll go. I just want proof you told me to go. Noisy gobshite grabbed David's hand holding the phone and screamed into it. Noisy gobshite, get off the site, you idiot. You're fired. If you're still here in 10 minutes, I'll have you thrown out. David, cool, no problem. He picked up all his stuff and walked away. As he was leaving, the contractor's site manager passed him, ironically with a coffee for the boss, and with a smile said, "Site manager, you leaving early, Dave. Bloody part-timers, joking. David, no, your boss just fired me. Our contract is ended. Sorry, mate. Site manager, no, no, no. Let me sort this out. Wait, please, please, wait." David left. The site manager was freaking out because he knew something that noisy gobshite didn't. Only 7 people in the UK are qualified to do the work. They all have a waiting list, and David had been the only one available. By the time he got home, he had 12 missed calls. That was Thursday. 2 working days missed so far. He said he'll go back, but only if he gets paid for the extra days and gets a real apology in person from the boss. I met my friend when he was getting a call from the site manager saying the boss is sorry, but he's out of the country so he can't apologize face-to-face. David also told me he called the other specialists to warn them, but they'd all been called on Friday, begging them to take the job. Nobody took it. They're all booked solid. David also called the architect to give him a heads up. In situations like this, some shady contractors try to cut corners and fake the work. David is going to stand his ground. He wants pay for all the missed days plus a face-to-face apology. He's sure he'll get it. I've said I'd pay anything to see that face-to-face apology. Update 1, the site manager called to say he was told by this loudmouth jerk to threaten legal action if David doesn't finish the job. The site manager was super embarrassed and apologetic. David reminded him he didn't quit and has proof that he was fired. The site manager called again to say the loudmouth jerk will apologize face-to-face on Friday. Can David start tomorrow? David said no. After the threat of legal action, the conditions have changed. 1 face-to-face apology before work restarts. 2 extra pay for the wasted days. 3 payment of the full contract value up front before work starts. 4 all of this has to happen by Thursday. That's the last day he can start and still expect to finish before his next booking. If he also works the weekends, he has just enough time. I asked him why he isn't charging a huge extra amount for the guy being such a jerk. He said it doesn't look good to take advantage of companies when they're under time pressure. Not the done thing. It seems that one of my friends is an 18th century gentleman. Edit. I misunderstood David when he said only 7 others do this work. He meant 7 other businesses apart from his. They're small businesses, so he says it's probably about 20 people who can do it. Still a small number, but not as comically small as 7. Sorry for the confusion about the number. Update 2. Unfortunately, it seems there won't be an apology coming. David found out that the site manager got blamed for not filling in the noisy gobshite about the situation ahead of time and was let go. David reached out to the operations director at ACC Limited, who's basically the noisy gobshite's number 2, and let him know that an apology isn't needed anymore since he's not going back to the job. The ops director apologized for the whole mess and offered to sweeten the deal financially. David told him he was only thinking about returning as a favor to the original site manager, and since he's not there anymore, he doesn't feel any need to go back. The ops director said he'd get back to David, but didn't give a reason why. I asked why he didn't just demand his job back or say he wouldn't return without it. David said the noisy gobshite is too petty and weak to be bossed around by a craftsman. It has to be the company's decision to bring the site manager back. If I tell them to do it, it won't happen. David says the site manager is awesome at his job, but he's only 4 years away from retirement, so it's tough to find work at 61. I've decided I like David even more than I did 3 days ago. Update 3, it's 2 a.m. here. We just got back from the pub. David got a call while we were out from the SACS site manager. David filled in the architect on what's been going on this afternoon. The architect then contacted the SACS site manager to tell him about a company looking for a site manager. The SACS site manager called David just before 9 p.m., and I had to sit through the call, only hearing David's side. I must have looked ridiculously excited, like I had a bunch of sparrows up my butt. Then David filled me in on what was said. The site manager called to thank him and to ask about his favorite drink so he could send him a bottle. He doesn't have the new job yet, but he's meeting with them on Friday. Apparently, the architect's recommendation means a lot, so he's feeling pretty good about it. David turned down the offer at first. I didn't get you a job, the architect did. The site manager said, but you kicked everything off and told the architect that I've been fired. Thanks to you, I never have to deal with that obnoxious pillock ever again. David didn't specify who the obnoxious pillock was. We'll have to guess. David said his drink is Cardu Gold Reserve. He said he'll only accept a bottle if A, the site manager gets the new job, and B, if the site manager comes over to drink the Cardu with David. Looks like the handsome scribe who did the tough, time-consuming job of writing this saga down on Reddit isn't included in the whiskey consumption. As David put it, piss off knobhead, you can buy your own damn drink. All good news, hopefully, except that nobody gets to see that tosspot, noisy gobshite, eat shit when he has to apologize. I was really looking forward to that. David and the fired site manager know each other outside of work. They're both part of charity organizations in the same town. 2 different groups, but they work together a lot. The site manager is in the Rotary Club, and David is in the Round Table. I don't think he's a knight, but you never know. The operations director for ACC Limited called David to suggest they take the site manager back and generously renegotiate the money. David says they've missed their chance. There's no way he can finish the job on his own before he starts his next job. There's an absolute minimum of 11 days of work left if everything goes smoothly. David's next job starts on November 4th. Only 10 days left if he works both weekends. Too late. I wish I could be a fly on the wall when noisy gobshite gets the news. The most common question is, what does David do? If I told you what it was, it'd be so identifying that I might as well give you his real name and address. Sorry. The reason there are so few of them is because it takes 5 years just to get good at it, and at least 9 years to become a master craftsman. The jobs always need at least one master on site when the work is being done. Update 4, bad news. The fired site manager didn't land the other job. He met with the new company, but they're not taking him on. The reasons aren't clear. David is meeting him on Sunday to talk about it. I can tell David feels awful about it even though it's not his fault. The site manager says he's going to take action for unfair dismissal. I thought this was going to be a win-win-win situation, but I guess life doesn't always work out that way. News about the sacked site manager. The situation isn't as bad as we first thought. I think we misunderstood what happened on Friday. David talked to him yesterday. The company he saw on Friday isn't employing him in the usual way. That part was correct. But they have offered him a fixed-term contract for 18 months to work on a distribution center build. It's not perfect, but on the bright side, it's slightly better paid than ACC. It's only 18 months, but hey, it's better than nothing. There's also the chance that the new company might extend the contract if another project comes along. David has heard that they're bringing in a Bulgarian guy to do the job. David was grinning when he told me. He thinks he knows what's going to happen. There's a similar but different technique that was used on some 19th century buildings in Sofia. David thinks that the guy will use that technique. It looks similar, but two very important materials are different. David has decided to wait. He plans to let the Bulgarian finish the job and get paid. Then David is going to suggest to the planning department and the client that they check the two components. Unless the Bulgarian knows the 17th century English method, he will have used the wrong materials. It would mean ripping it out and starting over. They are incredibly strict with this type of work. I shouldn't want this so much, but man, I really hope it happens. I'm a petty guy, what can I say? A lot of people are asking when David will find out if the Bulgarian has done the job right. David might know pretty soon because there aren't many suppliers for one of the materials. If the Bulgarian contacts them, David will get the scoop. In David's words, it's a tiny, incestuous part of the industry and they gossip like old women. Correction, we all gossip like old women. If he doesn't go there, David is leaving it alone until he hears that the work is done and the Bulgarian gets paid. He doesn't want to mess with the guy's money. In David's words, I don't want the Bulgarian to drag his arse over here and go home empty-handed just because I can't wait to drop silly bollocks in the shit. The man's got a living to earn. I'll wait. Just so you know, silly bollocks is the same person as noisy gobshite. It should take the Bulgarian about 3 weeks to finish the job unless he works weekends. David knows plenty of people on site and a few at ACC head office, so he'll know when the job is done. So, I've got to sit on my hands for 3 to 4 weeks and pretend I'm not an excited 7-year-old girl who's about to pee her pants because Christmas is coming. Update 5. David has been told that the Bulgarian got straight to it and started working. He's had materials delivered, but from a regular building supplier. The stuff he needs to do the job properly is too bulky for him to bring from Bulgaria, even if they sell it there. He hasn't ordered it from the UK supplier. There are 3, but only one has enough for this job because they got it in for David. So unless it's coming by road and ferry, he's not using the right materials. David wouldn't let it go unreported, even if he wasn't annoyed about noisy gobshite. He's got a real passion for taking care of all these buildings he works on, and he's a stickler for historical accuracy. So now, I've got to hold my water for 3 to 4 weeks. David says that if he's using more modern materials, he might finish the job quicker. It usually takes 3 weeks if you stick to the 17th century stuff. I've turned into a bit of a weirdo about this job. When I called David earlier with some lame excuse, he realized I was just after info again. David, fuck me. Do you want me to wear a body cam so you can see and hear everything as it happens? Me, if it's not too much trouble and you can link me into your phone calls. That'd be nice. David, after laughing, you fucking knob cheese. Is it okay if I cover the lens when I'm taking a dump and banging my wife? Me personally, I don't do those two things at the same time, but whatever floats your boat. David, you're telling me you do them separately. When are you banging my wife? Me right after she's cleaned all the shit off the sheets from doing you. Some of us are fussy. David, piss off. You're an uptight, clean freak. He hangs up. No goodbye, no see you soon. English manners aren't what they used to be. I know it doesn't look like it, but honestly, I do have a life. I promise. When I first started writing this, I would never have believed I was going to type. Update 6, lots of news. The Bulgarian finished the job and went home 2 weeks ago. According to the people who met him, Stefan, the Bulgarian, was a good guy and very hard worker. He did 12-hour days and weekends so he could cut the cost of staying in the UK. Based on what he learned about Stefan, David is happy that he waited until Stefan got paid before he reported the work. David was already fairly sure that Stefan was not doing the job correctly. He had checked the 3 firms who are the only UK suppliers of the most obscure material involved in the job, and none said they'd had an order for the site. Of course, it was possible that Stefan imported it, but nobody on site had seen an overseas material order. So as planned, David contacted the local authority planning department, the client, the architect, and an organization called Historic England. He laid out his worries in the simplest, least annoying way to check things out. Then he waited for them to dig into it. It only took a couple of days, but I can honestly say I've never been this on edge or cared so much about something that's totally not my business. The first report came from the architect. Wrong approach, wrong stuff used. He went with a 19th century Bulgarian method instead of the 17th century English one that was needed. The architect was super pissed. David told me he's never heard the architect swear before, but this call was full of it. Apparently, the guy they call Noisy Gobshite got labeled an ignorant fucking cockwomble by the architect. David hit me up asking what a cockwomble is. I had no clue. Let me know if you have any ideas. The architect said he was going to reach out to the local authority because he didn't want them to think this mess had anything to do with him. Most of the other info came to David indirectly. He knows some folks from ACC. I asked if it was tough to get them to spill anything. He said they couldn't answer the phone quick enough. The local authority planning officers swung by the site and checked out the work. They told the contractor the job was totally off and needed to be torn out and redone right. Then things got even more interesting. The inspectors took a closer look around the site. They spotted a problem. I can't get into the specifics because it'd be too easy to pinpoint the buildings. The contractor messed up part of the building. There was this internal feature that didn't seem like a big deal but was actually part of the roof structure. They yanked it out and slapped in a much better modern support. But they weren't supposed to. Neither the project manager, the new site manager, nor the staff knew how important it was. Guess who called for it to be swapped out, quick and cheap instead of slow and pricey? Of course, it was Noisy Gobshite. It's a criminal offense to wreck anything on this kind of property. Jail time type of crime. Even if they don't go to jail, it's a massive fine. So now everybody in that company is pointing fingers at each other and claiming no responsibility. Noisy Gobshite has claimed that he did not give the order to take out the internal parts of the roof structure. The project manager's email evidence says he did. On Tuesday 19th, the client kicked all of the contractor's staff off the site. They're having everything checked out. It's almost certain they're firing the contractor. They've put out calls for bids from new contractors. They'll also sue the contractor for the cost of fixing and replacing everything they've messed up. The architect's estimate was £800,000. The local authority planning department sent a letter to the contractor spelling out what they've done wrong and letting them know about their plans to inspect and the chance of getting prosecuted. According to the staff, Noisy Gobshite took off to the lawyers on the day the letter showed up. David had 3 different people from ACC call him within an hour when the news of the letter spread around the staff. So now we're waiting for a few things. One, client's inspection. If that confirms that ACC have messed up the site, then the client has the right to fire the contractor. ACC doesn't get paid, and they're stuck with a huge repair bill. 2, local authority inspection by conservation experts. If they've wrecked features in the property, the local authority will prosecute ACC as a company and the person who ordered it. David is very unhappy because the internal structure that has been destroyed can't be replaced. In his words, that's what has been sitting there doing its job for 400 years until that fucking Gistain comes into the picture. Then it's gone and that's it, never again. He seems genuinely sad. I'm betting that Noisy Gobshite is wishing he got his own coffee on that day last month. Edit. The letter to ACC, not their real name, did not threaten to prosecute. It only made them aware that the planning department was planning to send a specialist to check out the building, especially the part that was affected by the change. Apparently, if there's going to be any prosecution, it's going to take forever. I'm really sorry for leading you guys astray. Like everyone else, I was too quick to grab my pitchfork and jump to the worst conclusions. A mix of wishful thinking and rumors meant that by the time the story reached David, it was way more serious and advanced. The loudmouth might actually face charges, but if it happens, it's more likely to be 6 months rather than 6 days. That's the second time I've had to correct myself since I started. I promised to try to be more careful with future updates. It's my fault, not David's. David warned me. Not everything you hear needs to come flying out of your mouth. You're too eager to feed the masses. They might think you're all sunshine and rainbows right now, but that won't last if you mess up the info. He's right. As usual, as fucking usual. As annoyingly fucking usual. A few people have asked what happened to the original site manager who got fired, but I couldn't answer until tonight. Me, David, the site manager, and 2 others met up at the pub. He definitely has the new job, pending some fidelity insurance checks which he'll pass, and he starts on the 9th of February. He got paid off instead of having to work out his notice by ACC. It's standard practice when someone gets fired. His contract required 3 months' notice, and he was owed 12 vacation days, so they paid him a little over 3.5 months' salary in one go. He also gets to keep the car until March. He said when he fired me I was shaking like a leaf, but my wife reminded me that I could take my pension early and how much I hate that company, and especially that shady jerk. Then the architect called me about the distribution center job, and I stopped worrying. He has Christmas off, and he's starting the new job with a slightly higher salary. The only downside is that the job is only guaranteed for 18 months. There's a good chance the company will keep him after that if they have work, but it's not a sure thing. At first, he was planning to take Noisy Gobshite to an industrial tribunal for unfair dismissal, but now he can't because he won't be hurting financially. He said, "Obviously, I'm glad I'm not losing money, but I was looking forward to beating that Watsoak in court." Right now, he's using the extra time to build a better sleigh and some reindeer. Yep, a sleigh. It's meant to go on the back of a truck. His group walks around the area dressed as elves and snowmen, with Father Christmas on the sleigh, playing Christmas carols at window-rattling volume, collecting donations for a charity. I've been roped into it many times. He brought David the whiskey he promised. David said he shouldn't, but the site managers said Yorkshire men keep their word, even to a bunch of soft, shandy-sipping southerners like you lot. Besides, I'm not risking breaking this lucky streak. Even the whiskey was half price. Both me and David pointed at him at the same time and said, "A real Yorkshireman." For those who don't know, Yorkshire folk have a reputation for two things: being very straight-talking and careful with their money. Oh, after chewing him out for suggesting I was a southerner, we left the pub and went to the site manager's garage so we could drink the whiskey and check out his work on the sleigh. If I tell you all how good Cardew Gold Reserve tastes, will they send me some freebies? I'm Welsh, born near Caernarfon. Sasnegufalef, Cymru and Baith. That's why you've probably noticed some iffy grammar. I'm rambling now because I'm full of whiskey. It's 1 a.m., so it's past my bedtime. Bye for now. Update 7. I think there might be some karmic justice on its way. Noisy Gobshite has been interviewed under caution. It doesn't mean they're definitely suing him, but it means they're getting ready just in case. They did the same thing with the project manager, and they're going to do it with the fired site manager next week. The site manager is sure he's got nothing to worry about. The decision to take out the roof support sections happened after he was let go. He said he was sure that if he'd been there when the illegal change was made, the Noisy Gobshite would have tried to pin it on him. Or as the site manager put it, that cowardly, blame-shifting jerk would have thrown me under the bus to save his own skin. Can jerks even do that? Luckily, the project manager has proof, in the form of an email, that Noisy Gobshite ordered the work. Noisy Gobshite tried to sweet-talk and bribe him not to share it with the people looking into this for the local planning department. When that didn't work, he tried to threaten him. That backfired because not only did the project manager ignore the threats, but he told the investigators that Noisy Gobshite told him to delete the email. I have a lawyer friend who tells me that messing with a witness and destroying evidence are crimes on their own. Noisy Gobshite won't stop digging himself into a deeper hole. I'm going to be so bummed if he gets away without facing any legal consequences. He's definitely suffering, though. The big news of the week: Noisy Gobshite has been fired. David announced it yesterday on Saturday after he was told by no less than 4 different ACC employees. He said they couldn't wait to share the news. Then the conversation went like this. "Me, how the heck is that possible? How does the owner get fired? Did he look in the mirror and say, 'You're as useful as Anne Frank's drum kit, you're fired'?" David, "Nope. You know, he inherited the business from his dad and uncle." Me, "Yep." David, "You know, his brother and cousin own a share each." Me, "Yep." David, "Well, their combined share is over 50%, so they fired him." According to Louise, the accounts manager, they're totally freaking out. They were cool with letting Noisy Gobshite run the show as long as the cash kept coming, but now their golden goose is looking pretty sick. They're scared to death that losing this contract, along with the penalties and fines, could tank the business. So they're begging the client, who's also the property owner, to bring ACC back to finish the job. Part of that means convincing the building owner that Noisy Gobshite will never be involved with the company again. Obviously, they're throwing Noisy Gobshite under the bus. Louise said there were screams and threats of violence from Noisy Gobshite when they fired him. He had to be escorted out. He's been calling employees, asking questions, and seems shocked when people don't want to help him. According to Louise, he actually thinks the employees like him and want to be loyal to him. She said the guy is living in a fantasy world. Me, he's going to be so pissed off, I wish I could see that idiot's face when it happens. David, it's nothing that the scumbag doesn't deserve. There's something else, but I can't tell you because I promised the person who told me that I wouldn't tell anyone yet. Me, you're such a tease. How big is it? David, it's huge. Life-changing for the person involved. I wish I could tell you because it nearly got me excited. Me, damn, it must be big if it can get that ugly thing to do anything except hang there like the last chicken in the shop. Your wife must have been thrilled. David, what a drama. She thinks I should tell her this thing I was told in confidence. She thinks I should be able to tell her everything because we're married. I explained it's not my secret to share. I was hoping I'd get, "I appreciate you have integrity, dear husband." But no, I've got an angry wife who thinks I'm a jerk. Louise and her job title have been changed to protect the innocent. It's gonna be a couple of months before he can drop this awesome news, so don't hold your breath, okay? The client, who's also the building owner, did their inspection. 2 spots were no good, just like we thought. The damaged part and the section that David was supposed to handle but Stefan ended up doing. They're pretty pissed off. When historic buildings get messed up, the local authorities usually think the owner's cutting corners. But in this case, the owner is this old, crusty institution that's all about preserving important buildings. They're not used to being accused of shady stuff, so they really didn't like having to prove they had nothing to do with the damage. David said it looks like they've given up on ACC because they've sent out a type of request for tenders to a bunch of other contractors who specialize in conservation. Then he started throwing around a bunch of jargon that I didn't get or remember. Me, in simple English, they've asked a few companies to quote a price for the job. David, that's a really basic way to put it, but I don't have the time or the crayons to explain it to you, so yeah, let's say they're asking for prices for the job. What a condescending jerk. So I was hoping this story would build up to some big climax with the loudmouth suffering something awful, but it's just kind of fizzled out with a whimper while we wait to see what legal action is going to happen. Real life is inconveniently slow. January 21, 2020. Hey, this is Mark's wife. The idiot asked me to apologize to the internet for his silence. He got hurt in a car accident on the 7th of January. We're sure he's going to make a full recovery, but he won't be online for a bit. I told him it's just Reddit, but he's an obsessive nut about not letting people down, so I promised I'd add Reddit to the list. So here I am, telling all the people that he doesn't know why he hasn't finished telling them something they're probably not reading anyway. March 2, 2020. Hey, it's Mark's wife again. We got over 200 direct messages. Thanks so much for all your comments and well wishes. I've read every single one to him. I'm gonna tackle the 3 most common questions you guys had. 1. What happened to Mark? He was just sitting in his car waiting to get off the highway when this huge truck slammed right into the back of him. His car got totally smashed between that truck and the one in front of him. He's got a bunch of broken bones. His nose, left eye socket, and cheekbone, left arm's radius and ulna, 4 bones in his left hand, right leg's tibia and fibula, and 4 ribs, one of which poked a hole in his left lung. There's some damage to the central vision in his left eye, but we're hoping it's not permanent. He's got some messed up tendons in his right hand that need more surgery. He's covered in cuts with a total of 112 stitches. He looks rough, but there's a chance he might pull through without any lasting damage. If it were me, I'd be a total wreck, but he's always been tough as nails since I've known him. When I first got to the hospital and saw him all covered in blood, wires, and tubes, barely able to talk, I lost it. But he had me laughing in no time. He's always known just what to say. The thing that's really bugging him right now is not being able to use his hands. 2. When will he update the story? It might be a while. I could ask his friend David for an update, but I definitely can't tell a story like Mark does. I mean, I'm biased, but I think Mark's the funniest guy I know. When he and David get going, I laugh so hard I can barely breathe. For now, I've told him to focus on getting better and not worry about anything else, but if it starts to get to him, I've said I'll play secretary and he can dictate the story to me. I know he'll finish it. He always finishes what he starts. I wish I had just a fraction of his self-discipline. 3. A few folks have asked if they can send him cards, gifts, or money to help with medical bills or lost earnings. Thanks so much for the offer, but it's really not necessary. We're in the UK, so thankfully healthcare is free. He doesn't want anyone's money. If anyone still feels the need to do something, there's a charity we've supported for a long time called Macmillan Cancer Support. Final update. Do you know who I am backfires on business owner? The David versus Noisy Gobshite story. May 22, 2020, this username /u/mostly gruntle belonged to my husband Mark. He wrote the story about his friend David and a business owner he called Noisy Gobshite. Mark had been updating the story until he was involved in a car accident in January. At that time, he asked me to let everyone know that he was injured and he would update the story when he had recovered. Unfortunately, just over a week after my last comment, Mark passed away. Everyone thought he was getting better, but without warning, he suddenly became unconscious and died very quickly. The staff did everything they could to save him, but he had suffered a ruptured aorta. They said it had probably been damaged during the accident and isn't uncommon in car crashes. I'm sorry I didn't update this sooner, but to be honest, I totally forgot about this website. It was only when I came back to read Mark's words again that I saw how many people were waiting for Mark to finish the story. I don't know how many people will see this update, but if you know anyone who is waiting for Mark to reply, would you please pass this news to them? Thanks. Thanks to the hundreds of people who left get well messages for Mark. I'm so sorry that I ignored you all for so long, but I've been totally out of it for the last 3 months. Mark would definitely have disapproved of my leaving everyone hanging and would have given me an earful. Big thanks to everyone who donated to Macmillan Cancer Support, even if it's kinda weird seeing money given in the name of mostly. Gruntled. And a huge shout out to the moderators, especially you/Marari01, for helping me figure out how to let everyone know. On May 24, 2020, I can't thank you all enough for the sweet messages and virtual hugs I've seen over the past day. I've been crying for hours. It's tough to explain what good crying feels like when you lose someone. If you've ever lost someone you love, you probably get it. Thanks to your posts and messages, most of today has been filled with good crying. Your words have made me focus on all of Mark's amazing qualities and all the reasons I loved him so much. I started writing the update and then ditched it about 8 times before finally finding the courage to post it. I'm so glad I did. Thanks again to the moderator you/Marari01 for that final nudge I needed. It's also made me realize that I want to do one more thing that Mark would have wanted. He always finished what he started. I'm going to reach out to his friends and find out what's been going on. I know some of it already, but I'll try to catch up with everyone's stories. Just a heads up, it won't be like Mark's writing. It'll just be the facts. I don't have an ounce of Mark's storytelling flair, but it's clear from the comments that a lot of people were waiting for a conclusion. The plain facts will have to do. Please be understanding. I'm going to talk to the guy he called David, who's been a total rock for me this year. Hopefully, he can fill me in on everything. I'll post the update as soon as I can. Thank you all so much. You have no idea how much this has helped. On May 25, 2020, yesterday was a better day, mainly because of what you all wrote. Today I woke up angry and I can't shake it. Today's a public holiday in England and I can't stop thinking about what we'd be doing if Mark was still here. He never wasted a holiday. I'm so mad because I lost the best person I've ever known just because some selfish jerk couldn't wait to reply to a text message. I can't get over how stupid and unfair it is. He's going to prison, but only for a few years, and nothing will bring my Mark back. Sorry everyone, I just needed to vent. Please, please, please don't use your phone while driving and don't put up with it if you see others doing it. March 6, 2020, I want to mention 2 things. First, thanks to everyone who left a comment. The beautiful things you all said about Mark really lifted my spirits. I didn't think they would, which is why it took me so long to let you know that Mark had passed away. But you did help. Even when what you said was so touching that I broke down, which I've done dozens of times while reading the wonderful words. Second, I want to apologize for not responding to every comment yet. On some days I feel like I could talk about Mark all day. On others, I can't even think about him without falling apart. If I haven't responded to your individual comment, it's not that I haven't read it. I've read all of them. It's just that I've been in a bad place sometimes and I can't reply. I will eventually reply to everyone, just like I did very slowly with the cards at the time of his funeral and afterwards. I didn't think I'd get through them all. It felt like I was climbing a mountain that just kept growing, but I eventually replied to them all 322 of them. Finishing what I start is one of several good habits I picked up from Mark. I just want to hear him call me Carriot again. Carriot isn't my name. It's a Welsh word for love. July 27, 2020, 3:10 a.m. Wow. I haven't been online for a few days, and suddenly I'm swamped with hundreds of messages. I can't sleep again, and it hit me that I could fill you in on what happened to each of the people Mark had written about. It's just the facts. It won't have Mark's humor or style. Just plain info, but it's the best I can do and better than nothing. Site manager. He started as planned in the new position on a building project for a distribution center. Mark had already mentioned what site manager and David were unhappy about. Being on a fixed 18-month contract as a self-employed person was a disadvantage compared to being an employee. But that was before the coronavirus. After the virus hit, most of the employees were laid off, some were furloughed, but because of the contract, the company had to keep paying the site manager in full. What he thought was a bad thing turned out to be his savior, Noisy Gobshite. The last that David could tell me about Noisy Gobshite was that he has been forced to divest his share of the business, so he no longer owns a third. He had to sign a personal liability agreement regarding his assets in the event of total liabilities being greater than the value of the company. The way I understand that is that if, for example, the total bills for Noisy Gobshite's mistakes are more than the company can pay, then Noisy Gobshite must pay the extra even if that means he loses his house. He had to give up his share of the business because they couldn't keep trading if he was involved. He needs them to keep going to pay the lawyers. He hasn't been charged with a crime yet, but it's looking like he will. They take a long time investigating and preparing before they charge him. Something to do with needing to be ready to go to court once he is charged. It also came to light that he had a warning for similar, but much more minor damage to a listed building in 2011. David was told that the local authority found some shady stuff during their investigation and sent it over to HMRC, the tax guys. Noisy is also under the microscope for VAT fraud. One of the first comments on Mark's story was expensive cup of coffee. That's putting it mildly, if you ask me. The big scoop was supposed to be about Noisy Gobshite and the sexual assault rape of one of the PA in the ACC offices back in 2017, plus sexual harassment of other staff. Turns out the rape assault did happen, but it wasn't Noisy Gobshite. It was actually a former finance director. The stories about sexual harassment of female staff didn't go anywhere and ended up being just rumors. David, financially and work-wise, is probably one of the few people who weren't thrown off by the COVID-19 outbreak. Since he works solo and doesn't have to worry about social distancing, he's been able to keep going pretty much as usual. He said work is easier because, in his words, the usual plonkers aren't there to trip on my equipment or stick plank ends into my finished work. Personally, though, David isn't doing so hot. Outside of family, he took Mark's death harder than anyone. He tries not to let it show when he's around me. When he's with me, he's like a rock. He's saved me from myself. He's one of the few people where I feel I can really open up about Mark. Or at least, that's what I thought. I talked to David's wife last week, and she was so sweet and sympathetic about it, but she had to tell me to ease up a bit with David. He seems strong to me, but his wife says it's tearing him apart. I knew he and Mark were close friends. She says he's taken Mark's death really hard. She says in all their years of marriage, she only saw him cry once when their dog died. She didn't see him cry when his parents passed. She says he seems lost now and has cried quite a few times. The worst part to hear is that the times he cries are after he's been to see me. I feel awful. It's clear he was grieving, but I didn't realize I was leaning on him so much. I'm going to be more careful and stop using him to vent all my pain. I wish he had spoken up earlier. Or maybe I should have noticed it instead of being so caught up in my own grief. That's all I know about the updates. They're waiting to see what charges he'll face. If he's guilty of damaging historic buildings, he might end up in prison. If he's guilty of VAT fraud, he'll almost definitely go to prison. Either way, the fine will be in the 6 figures. David said he wondered if he'd like prison coffee. He's got a twisted sense of humor. July 27, 2025, 3:00 a.m. When I logged on earlier, I had notifications for 512 private messages and comments. I don't know where to begin. If you've written, please don't think I'm ungrateful because I haven't replied. At 3:10 a.m., I felt ready to write, so I did the update. Right now, I don't think I can do it. I've been watching our wedding video. I thought it would make me feel better, but it feels like I've been hit by a bus. Mark's speech has crushed me. He talked about when we met, and when he went back to the house he shared with other Royal Marines. One of them asked Mark, "What's the joke? You're grinning about something, come on, what's so funny?" Mark said he couldn't and wouldn't explain it to them. He just couldn't stop smiling every time he thought about our date. He said he felt like that every time he thought about me. On our wedding day, it made me smile and brought a tear to my eyes, but this morning it broke me. I don't think the pain is getting easier. I think it's getting worse. I can't stand it. I feel it all through me and I can't stop it. All I can think is that if I can't have him back, I wish I had been in the car with him. He was an atheist, and he always said this is all you get, so don't waste any of it, so he wouldn't approve of me hurting myself, and I don't think I can. It's just so hard to carry on with this pain. I just want it to stop. I'm sorry to go on like this. I can't say this to people I know because they'll worry, but writing here is like screaming into a diary. My apologies to everyone. They'll try to get a handle on things, but I miss him so much and I can't stop the pain. I don't know what to do. Nose Decariad. August 31, 2020, 17.25. Since I last updated this post, I've replied to a ton of messages, hundreds, but I didn't get through them all. I can't read or see any more of the messages in chat, but the screen says I still have 92 waiting. If you didn't get an answer, you're in the 92. It was our anniversary yesterday, August 30th. I was dreading it, but when it came, it felt kind of empty. I watched our wedding video. I cried. I answered some messages. Halfway through one message, I was suddenly hit with the realization that all the happiness I will ever have in my life has already happened. And it's over. Everything I try to do in the future is just going to be overshadowed by Mark should be here, but he isn't. Everything from here until I die is just going to be existence. Just breathing and watching the days go by. It seems so pointless without Mark. I don't know if I can write anymore. Thank you to everyone who offered their help. You're lovely people. Hold on to the people you love like you might lose them tomorrow. Don't do what I did and assume you can live in your own little heavenly bubble forever. Some careless idiot can snuff out everything you love in the blink of an eye, leaving you with nothing ahead of you. Bye.